Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football Friendly Focus. I'm your host who boasts, who claims he knows the most. If my picks help you win, you can definitely toast. But if my picks don't help you win, you can definitely roast. So, how did you guys do last week? I lost in both my leagues. My team didn't score enough points. It was pretty depressing. In one of my leagues, I thought I was going to come back, but it was too little too late. So, we're going to be in week 12, so we're going to do what we learned from week 11. So I learned that the Lions are a pretty gritty team. You never can count them out. They won 3 games in a row. They'll play to the very end. So don't underestimate any of those guys at all. After the abysmal performance from against the Patriots last week, it looked like Zach Wilson is going to be benched for Mike White. It looks like Mike White's going to be kind of like in a situation with Taylor Heineke, where they have a switching on the quarterbacks. Looks like the team might be more rejuvenated. Looks like they might be going to be play better too. I'm just going to call it like that right now. Like Wilson doesn't look like he's mature enough right now. So I think White's going to really boost their spirits and then probably going to turn it into a bunch of wins. And the Cowboys went into Minnesota and stomped the Vikings. Only held them to 3 points. Didn't let anybody score. So yeah, their defense is probably one of the best in the league and not to be overlooked at all. So. Speaking of the Cowboys, they're going to be at home against the Giants. So I'll start with the Giants first. Daniel Jones, I would not recommend starting him. He did okay last week, but they're going to be at the Cowboys, at home. So I wouldn't recommend starting him at all. Same with Slayton and the other wide receivers. The secondary is going to be all over them. Sorry, I don't know the tight end for the Giants, but I would only recommend starting Barkley. But even though, that might be from playing from, so way behind that they might not even use him because they might, stack the line and then bottle him up. And it comes to the Giants defense, I wouldn't recommend starting them at all. When it comes to the Cowboys, though, I'd recommend starting Dak for sure. The only wide receiver I would recommend starting is CeeDee Lamb. He seems to be getting all the looks. And Dalton Schultz is probably worth starting now. He's getting more looks. That's definitely for sure. Comes with the combo of Tony Pollard and Zeke. I recommend starting both of them. I think Tony Pollard's going to definitely get him close to the end zone, and maybe Zeke will vulture some touchdowns. And Cowboys defense, no brainer. You got to start for sure. So the next game is going to be the Buffalo Bills at those gritty Lions. So we'll start with the Bills. Josh Allen, that's no brainer. You got to start him for sure. Same with Stephon Diggs. I'm leaning more toward Dawson Knox starting this week. It looks like he's actually getting more involved in the offense that is just sitting there blocking. When it comes to the running backs, I would only trust Singletary. Hines looks like he's just a punt returner guy, doesn't really do much, maybe third down guy kind of guy. And James Cook is just kind of, mop up duty after they're winning by so much. And the Bills defense is actually worth a stream this week, for sure. So. When it comes to the Lions, Golf, I wouldn't recommend starting him this week, but Amon St. Brown, yeah, he's clear-cut number one wide receiver there. He's going to definitely get a lot of looks. When it comes to the tandem of Swift and Jamal Williams, I'd say start him for sure. I would recommend starting Williams more if you have him, because he seems to be getting all the touchdowns. And when it comes to Detroit defense, never ever start them. And the third game for Thanksgiving is going to be the Patriots at the Vikings. Max Jones was just as bad as Zach Wilson last week. They couldn't even score touchdowns, so I wouldn't recommend starting him. Comes to the wide receivers like Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers, the whole gang like that, no. Same with the tight ends and Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, no. The only guys I trust on the Patriots is Ramondre Stevenson and Damien Harris. It looks like they're going to rely on their run game a lot and probably their defense. But for this week, I wouldn't recommend starting their defense because they're going to be in Minnesota. I think Kirk Cousins and company is going to be pretty pissed off. Cousins is really hit or miss. Some weeks he'll look really good, and then some weeks he'll look really bad. And then he's always prone to throw an interception or turn the ball over a lot. So be very wary if you plan to start him. If you have someone better or a better matchup, maybe a streaming quarterback, then I definitely recommend them over Cousins. But I look for Jefferson to get back on track this week. He's a no-brainer. Hawkinson for sure. He's slowly but steadily getting back understanding the playbook and everything like that. Dalvin Cook, no brainer. And this matchup might look good on paper, but I wouldn't recommend starting the Vikings defense. So they do okay. They kind of maybe just do enough when it comes to crunch time, but I wouldn't recommend starting them. So we're gonna jump into the Sunday games, the early games. When it comes to the first one is gonna be Denver at Carolina. Man, like the Broncos, they're a mess. They can't do anything on offense at all. I wouldn't start Russell Wilson. He just kind of does the bare minimum right now, probably just because of what he has. I think Sutton is the only reliable wide receiver. Judy's out with an injury. Um, the tight end, he's doing okay. Look for him to maybe possibly get open more. But when it comes to the running game, to let Melvin Gordon go due to fumbling issues, so he's gone. It's Latavius Murray's job, so he'd probably be an interesting start this week because they might rely on running the ball a lot more, and Carolina is pretty bad overall. So when it comes to the Denver defense, I wouldn't recommend starting them at all. Um, the Panthers are just as bad. Now they're going to Sam Darnold. I wouldn't recommend him at all, too. He's coming in like over half the season done. I know he's good for scrambling, but it doesn't seem that of a solid QB that's taking a grasp on the offense here. Well, maybe PJ Walker, but he's not playing. Wouldn't start DJ Moore. Sorry, I don't know the tight end for Carolina. That's just the way it is. Sorry, I'm just not know certain players. Comes to Hubbard and Foreman. They're probably going to rely on those guys a lot more to take some pressure off Darnold for sure. And when it comes to Carolina defense, it might seem enticing, but I would not recommend starting Carolina defense. So the next game is going to be Tampa Bay at Cleveland. Looks like that Tampa Bay might be back on track. So I would recommend starting Tom Brady for sure. Godwin and Evans definitely start for sure. The tight end, I think it's Cotton or something. But if you have him, he's definitely worth a stream. I would just kind of look at the matchup before, see if Brady is coming back. Fournette is kind of like still dealing with a hip injury, so it could be White that comes. So make sure you watch down to game time and make sure that you check your lineup. And it comes to Tampa Bay defense. This one might look like a good matchup too, but Tampa Bay defense is not what it used to be, and they're playing on the road. So I'm not sure if this is the game that Deshaun Watson can come back, but even if he did, I wouldn't recommend him. Jacoby Brissett actually has been pretty good in his place. I mean, they do score a lot of garbage time touchdowns, but I wouldn't recommend him in this case. The only guy I would recommend on the wide receivers is Amari Cooper. Peoples-Jones actually did pretty well too, maybe for garbage time, so my mistake. Njoku probably good. Chubb, of course, he's no-brainer. Hunt is kind of more of an afterthought as of late. He hasn't really done much at all, so I wouldn't start him. And when it comes to Cleveland defense, no, wouldn't start him. Next game is Baltimore at Jacksonville. So Baltimore did enough last week to hold off the Panthers. Lamar Jackson, no-brainer. I think Mark Andrews is back. I think Robinson has taken over the number one wide receiver, so I would definitely say he would be a start for sure over Dumervay. Kenyon Drake, yeah, I would fire him up this week for sure against Jacksonville, even though they're on the road. And Baltimore defense, yeah, definitely worth a start this week. Trevor Lawrence, he's kind of in the same situation as Kirk Cousins, but more I would say lean on him for not starting him. So I wouldn't start Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk has been the number one wide receiver, so yeah, definitely start him for sure. Evan Ingram kind of seemed to be, disappearing from, the offense, so I wouldn't say start him. Etienne, he's taken over the lead back, so I say start him for sure. And now they even got Darrell Henderson off the Rams, who was released. So, but I don't see him being a big playmaker in it, so I wouldn't start him at all because that'd be very risky. Of course, we don't even know if he's going to play. So, all right, so let's jump into the next game. It's going to be the Houston Texans at the Miami Dolphins. So, probably know the whole routine now. I wouldn't start anybody on the Houston Texans. I think Mills is just getting benched for Kyle Allen. in this situation, it's not going to be the new quarterback's going to do anything right for them. It's just they are the worst team in the NFL. They only got one win. You got Brandon Cooks wanting out. So Damian Pierce wouldn't start him either. So OJ Howard's kind of disappeared, and Houston defense now. So, well, who knows? Kyle might surprise all us, but I doubt it. So it's in Miami. Tua, no brainer. Waddle, no brainer. Hill, no brainer. Gasecki has kind of fallen off a little bit, but I say against the Texans, I would say start him. Yeah, I would say start him. When it comes to Wilson and Mostert, if you have both of them, yeah, start them up. And Miami defense, definitely start. So the next game is going to be the Chicago Bears at the New York Jets. It seems that Fields is doing as much as he can to help out the team, but the defense is seeming to let him down. He's also dealing with a nagging shoulder injury, but I think he's going to try to tough it out. But the Jets defense is actually pretty good, and it's going to be in New York, so I wouldn't recommend starting Field this week. I think the Jets are going to find a way to bottle them up. When it comes to Mooney and Claypool, I think Mooney lean more toward him, but hasn't really done much. Claypool has kind of been like here and there, but nothing serious. I'd say look for Komet. Yeah, Komet for sure. He's kind of been the kind of go-to guy for Fields when he gets in trouble. Montgomery has a starting job now because Herbert's out for at least a minimum of 4 weeks, so fire him up. And Bears defense, no. Mike White, I wouldn't recommend starting him for the Jets because you don't know how it's going to pan out. Same well the wide receivers like Corey Davis, Wilson over on the wide receiver side, no. Same with Conklin, I wouldn't recommend him as well. Maybe the only guy I probably recommend is James Robinson. They might run a lot just to take some pressure off of White. And Michael Carter, but we'll see. Carter didn't seem like he's been, taking the backup role really well. So I would say bench him till otherwise. And the Jets defense, yeah, I would recommend starting him this week. So okay, next game is going to be Bengals at the Titans. So looks like Jamar Chase is going to be coming back for Burrow, which is a good sign. So Burrow likes to spread the ball around. I would say, even though in a tough environment in Tennessee, that Burrow is actually going to do pretty well. So I recommend starting Joe Burrow for sure. Jamar Chase if you have him. Same with Higgins. Tyler Boyd seems to be kind of like the lost guy out of this. So if you have someone better, then I recommend starting him. But if not, then I'd say go with just maybe Higgins and Chase. When it comes to Mixon, we're not going to check his status to make sure that he's okay. If not, P. Ryan, who scored 3 touchdowns and who was not on anyone's fantasy team last week, was a pretty big pickup. I picked him up myself, so but we'll just kind of wait and see. And Hayden Hurst is kind of, yeah, I say start Hayden Hurst if you have him to. And when it comes to Cincinnati defense, I don't think they're good enough to stop Tannehill, who's actually played really well. I think I said bench him last week against the Packers, but I was wrong. So Tannehill is definitely the quarterback, not Malik Willis for right now. So Burks kind of came out of nowhere and then actually got over 100 yards. So look for him, start him for sure. Possibly Robert Woods, but I think I would go with Burks more than Robert Woods. Sorry, I don't know who the Tennessee tight end is. This seems to be a theme. Derrick Henry, no brainer, start him. And I wouldn't start Tennessee defense. This game looks like it's going to be a shootout for sure. So next game is going to be the Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Commanders. So it looks like Kyle Pitts is going to be going on IR, so another weapon loss for Marcus Mariota. But doesn't really matter. I mean, I wouldn't recommend starting Mariota anyway. Drake London, wouldn't start. I think they might lean on Cordell Patterson a lot to run the ball, but they might be from behind him a lot. So Patterson probably a flex for sure, but none of the other running backs. So like I said, Kyle Pitts is out, so I don't know who the backup for that is. I wouldn't recommend starting him anyway. And Atlanta defense, I wouldn't start them. And when it comes to the Commanders, I think Heineke is doing enough, but not warning enough to start. Because he probably throws for a good amount of yards, but not for touchdowns. Even having McLaren and Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, what's his name? The Brian Thompson. I can't remember. I think Thompson and Gibson. You still have all those guys, and you still can't really score a lot of points. So um, Washington defense is actually a pretty good stream. So if you have all those offensive guys, I'd only trust the wide receivers. The running backs for sure. They'll probably be up a lot. So wide receivers and running backs start them for sure, and Washington defense definitely start them for sure. Next, we're gonna have the Chargers at the Cardinals. So Herbert did okay last week, even though you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams come back. Mike Williams left the game early, but it looks like Keenan Allen's getting a lot of looks again. So I'd say he's definitely starting for sure. Keenan Allen, he looks like he's getting back in the groove. Start him for sure. Mike Williams, if he's healthy, yeah, start him for sure. Palmer looks like the third wideout for sure. Like if Herbert gets in trouble, can't find anyone, so Palmer is definitely worth the flex. And Eckler, no brainer. You got to start him every week. Spiller hasn't really taken over the backup role really well, so I wouldn't recommend starting him. When it comes to the tight end, I don't know if Everett's still hurt or if it's McKitty starting, but I wouldn't recommend starting him because looks like McKitty's just kind of been delegated to more blocking than anything. I wouldn't start the Chargers defense. Looks like Kyler Murray is coming back for the Cardinals. This would probably be a good game for him. The Chargers defense is pretty bad. I would start up Hopkins, Hollywood Brown if he's playing. James Conner for sure. Looks like he's taken over the lead role again since they released Benjamin. Can't remember who the tight end is for Arizona after Zach Ertz got hurt, but probably really wouldn't matter. And then for the defense for Cardinals, no, I wouldn't start them. So next game is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders at the Seattle Seahawks. Derek Carr did enough for them to win last week. He's going to look for his number one guy in Davante Adams. I wouldn't recommend starting Derek Carr, but Davante Adams for sure. Josh Jacobs, yes. Is it Moreau? He stepping in for Waller, but did okay. I wouldn't recommend it this week. And I wouldn't recommend starting Raiders defense. So Geno Smith is back after a bye week. I would recommend starting him this week. Metcalf, Lockett start for sure. Noah Fant is a pretty interesting tight end this week. So I'd say start him this week. Yeah, no better defense start him than against the Raiders. So and Kenneth Walker, the third, no brainer. He's probably going to be getting a bunch of points, but I wouldn't recommend starting Seattle defense. So okay, well, next game is going to be the LA Rams against the Kansas City Chiefs. So remember a couple years ago, matchup between these two, and I think Mexico City was like the most scored points on a Monday night game. But now how the tides have turned. It looks like the Rams are on their third string quarterback. Stafford is out, Kupp is out, Robinson's dealing with an injury. Cam Akers like got starting job back, and Higbee, but it's kind of tough to recommend any of them because we don't know how this quarterback's going to pan out. So I wouldn't recommend starting any guys on the Rams. Even though I have Higbee, I'm a hypocrite now, but I might have to start him because I don't have anybody else. But I wouldn't recommend starting the Rams defense either. So KC, no brainer. Mahomes, start him for sure. And they put Edwards-Helaire on IR, so it looks like Pacheco and McKinnon are going to take over. So I would definitely recommend starting Pacheco for sure. McKinnon would be a good backup. Kelsey, no brainer. Looks like Juju might be coming back. But Tony really doesn't look like he hasn't acclimated yet, so I'd kind of hold back on starting any wide receivers for KC. And KC defense is definitely worth a stream this week, especially with the third string quarterback. So the next game is going to be the New Orleans Saints at the San Francisco 49ers. So Andy Dalton did pretty well last week against a pretty beat up Rams team. But I wouldn't start him this week against in San Francisco. But Olave, I would suggest starting for sure. And Gus Johnson has come out of nowhere to be a pretty good tight end, so I would recommend starting him for sure. Kamara as well, and I wouldn't recommend starting the Saints defense. Jimmy G did pretty good last week. He almost brought me back to win, so he threw 4 touchdowns last week. He found Kittle, he found Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel got into it too. And then so it looks like I would recommend starting him. wide receivers that I just mentioned, and Kittle got into it as well. It got 2 touchdowns, so looks like he might be finding his groove back. So, and then I would recommend starting San Francisco defense this week for sure. So the Sunday night game probably looked really good when I first put it on paper, right? But it's going to be the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. It looks like Aaron Rodgers dealing with a broken thumb. Oh man, it's just a complete mess. Um, Christian Watson looked like he's become the number 1 wide receiver. I'd say start him because just he's probably gonna definitely be getting some looks. I wouldn't start Cobb or Watson or Lazard. Seems those guys never get open. And when it comes to the running backs, I would say start Jones over Dillon. Dillon just kind of, gives Jones a breather, but doesn't do much else. I wouldn't start Tanyan, and when it comes to Green Bay defense, I would start them at all. So Eagles are back home, so I would recommend starting Jalen Hurts for sure, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith for sure. I'm not sure if Dallas Goedert is still hurt, but I don't know. I'm sure it's a trend with the tight ends here. It's kind of they seem to be falling more than any other position. So I'm not sure who the tight end is for the backup for Goddard, but when it comes to the running backs, you would Miles Sanders for sure, Gainwell possibly, and Philly defense. Yeah, look for them to pressure Aaron Rodgers a lot for sure. And the Monday night game is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Colts. I wouldn't recommend starting Kenny Pickett. Deontay Johnson, no. Pickens, no. Freiermuth is the only guy I would probably trust in the receiving core. Najee Harris actually did pretty good last week. Colts defense isn't what it used to be, so I would probably trust Harris and Freiermuth on defense. I mean, on offense, I'm sorry. And when it comes to Pittsburgh defense, they gave up a lot of points last week. Playing against the Colts pretty bad. No, I wouldn't recommend them. So, Matt Ryan is back at the quarterback position, so I wouldn't recommend starting him. I would say Pittman for sure because he's the number 1 guy there. Jonathan Taylor, most of you guys did draft him number 1, so yeah, you can start him for sure. The tight ends kind of disappear with Cox and Brown. I wouldn't start them. And the Colts defense, I wouldn't recommend starting them. So let's go to the kickers. So Tyler Bass, of course, you're going to start him for sure at the Lions. Harrison Butker at home against the Rams. Brett Maher against the Giants. McPherson at the Titans. Tucker at the Jaguars. Suckup come off the bye. Who's going to be at the Browns. I think that the Raiders are actually going to score a good amount of points. If not, they're going to get in range for Carlson. Robbie Gould has been, no pun intended, like gold for the 49ers. So look for them to get a lot of opportunities for him against the Saints. Nick Folk for the Patriots. If they don't score touchdowns, they're definitely going to, which they're probably not, they're going to definitely get field goals. So it'll be at the Vikings. And Jason Myers against the Raiders. So they're going to be pretty good at home against the Raiders. So look for the Seahawks to score a lot of points. So that's it for this week. I wish you guys good luck. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for nerding out to our nonsense. I wish, happy Thanksgiving again, like I said, to all of you guys, to all your friends and family. And I'll talk to you guys next week, all right? See ya.